Hi, my name is Mitch Stephen, and I've bought a property about every 4 to 5 days in or about my hometown of San Antonio, Texas for over 2.5 decades. That doesn't make me the end-all know-it-all of real estate, but it does put a lot of experience and a lot of know-how in my corner. Today we'll be discussing how to tell when windows need replacing and what to look for when you're replacing windows. In today's episode about windows, we'll be talking about one of the more expensive components of doing a rehab. Yes, that glass in those windows can cost a lot of money. We're going to be talking about repairs versus replacement, the different kind of upgrades, should you use the manufacturer's installer, and at the end of this segment, we're going to talk about a tip that you're going to want to be sure to recognize because it could save you a lot of money. All right, here we go. When it comes to the choice of either replacing windows or repairing windows, it's a personal decision, but let me give you some tips. Number one, it's really hard to match existing windows, especially if they've been there a long time. The problem is continuity. You know, you want everything to look the same, you want everything to match, but when windows have been there for 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 years, any window you get is probably not going to have the same kind of fade to whatever color that they are. The other problem is you can't just buy one new window and put it next to all the others, because all of a sudden the other windows look really bad when you have one new window next to all the others. So here's a suggestion. When you're working on a house, go by each individual side of the house, the front, the right, the left, the back. If you replace one window in the front with a new window, probably need to replace them all. But that doesn't mean you need to replace the windows on the right and left side. Those 2 windows may be fine. Those 3 windows may be good. So you could leave those alone on the sides. Then you go to the back of the house. Maybe nothing needs to be replaced, but if you have to replace one window at the back of the house, maybe you just replace the other 2 or 3 while you're there, making that back of the house have continuity and all look the same. Now, sometimes you don't even have to replace the windows, and that'd be a lot cheaper if you didn't. You know, when they get that little fog in the glass, remember, these windows are made for replacement parts. At least they are these days. I don't know how old your windows are, but if you have relatively new windows, and I'm saying the last 10 years, you can probably just replace the foggy glass. What causes that fog? It's just that the seals are broken. You know, these windows have a front glass and a black glass, and then they have a frame inside, you know, suck all the air out of them, vacuum seal them, and that's kind of what gives them an insulating factor, but it's also what causes the problem. Whenever that seal breaks, you can get moisture in between those 2 pieces of glass, and that's what's causing that fog. Lots of times you can just call out a glass company and they'll just replace the glass piece. And that's a lot easier than ripping out windows and having to deal with siding and sheetrock and framing on the inside of the house and all that. Much easier to replace the glass. So if you ever have a chance to just replace the glass, do that first. The question is, do the windows look good enough, and do they have enough R value or insulation value to keep them? And that's a personal decision depending on the strategy of the house. What are you using this house for? Is it your personal house? Is it a quick flip? Are you going to use it as a rent house? Every one of these angles might make you think differently about what you need in a window. So, first thing, figure out your strategy. Second thing, figure out if you can replace some of the windows. Third thing, if you have to replace some windows, you may not have to replace them all. Go by each side of the house, you know, one side at a time. And that's my opinion on replacing versus repairing. All right, off to the next topic. So what about all the different upgrades in windows? You know, there's a lot of choices. This rating and that rating, and then the super duper rating, and then the super duper duper rating with the warranty and all this stuff. You know, that's a personal decision too. You have to decide, first of all, what is the strategy or what is the angle on the property that you're working on? Again, is it going to be your house? If it's your house, I'd understand the super duper value. But if this is a flip house, that's a different story. And if it's a house you're going to be a landlord for, then that's even a different story still, because you need to cut down on the bills for your tenants as much as possible so they can afford to pay you the rent. So pick the strategy you want again, and then let's go back to the same thing as when I was talking about replacing some windows in the entire house. but going side by side by side. When we get to the chance to pick a really high UV or a really highly insulated window, you might not need to spend the money on all the windows through the whole house to have that top-notch insulation R value. You could just pick the sides of the house that really get hit by the sun. If it's just two sides of the house that get pounded, maybe you only need to spend the extra money on the R value or insulation value on just those two sides of the house, because let's say the two ends of the house never really get any sun. So why would you have to spend a lot of money on that insulation or R value on those windows? So again, I'm trying to help you save some money. A lot of people just kind of do a blanket approach. I want this grade, I want the highest quality, and I want it all the way around the house. Well, you just kind of wasted some money on the 6 windows that were on the ends of the property, on the ends of the house. So think about that when you're choosing the different upgrades. Then pick the upgrade that matches the strategy for this house. Now here's a good question. I have to ask this question of myself all the time. Do I use the manufacturer's installer, or do I just use my own guy that I'm used to? Well, here's the answer to that question. The short answer is yes, you should use the manufacturer's installer if at all possible. The reason why is these windows have warranties. And if you get that manufacturer out of the loop, or you bring in your own guy to work with these windows, all the finger pointing starts at that point. So if there's something wrong with these windows and you call in, but you didn't use the manufacturer's installer, they're going to start pointing at your guy who installed the windows for you and blaming things on them and trying to either avoid the warranty or have a legitimate reason for not being responsible for the warranty. I find that if you'll use the manufacturer's installers, all that goes away. Everything's either perfect or it's not, and if it's not perfect, they have no one to point a finger at, That's why I like to say use the manufacturer's installer. But there can be a problem with using the manufacturer's installer, of course. Nothing's easy in this business. It's all a little different shades of gray. So a lot of times the manufacturer's installer is not ready or can't show up on your timeline. They may not even be an installer within your area, so it might be a little more expensive for them to travel outside of their jurisdiction or the areas that they represent. So the real problem in this decision is cost. Who's going to do it cheaper or more effective by the dollar? It's probably going to be your guy. Then there's time. When can the manufacturer's installer get there versus when your installer can get there? Chances are yours can act when you want them to. The manufacturer's installer is going to have to do it whenever they can fit you into the schedule. And then lastly, the availability. Is there even a manufacturer's installer in your area? And those are the 3 problems. So before we get to that tip that I want you to be sure to recognize so you can save a little money, let's take a look at that share button, that like button, and of course the subscribe button. Please mash on all 3 of those a couple of times, and then I'm going to show you about this tip. Okay, about that tip, here's a big one. It's cost me a lot of time and a lot of money in my past, and I'm trying to save you that time and that money. Whenever you come upon a rehab and you know you're going to have to replace windows, walk around the house, assess how many windows, get that order ready and get it turned in early. To get a lot of different sizes and a lot of different windows around the house all to match, and heaven forbid you've got some oddball sizes that you're going to have to replace that are going to require like custom work, you need to get that window order turned in early or it's going to delay your whole entire job. You can't do sheetrock without having windows in. There's a whole lot of things you can't do until the windows are put in, and it'll slow your job down immensely. So there's the tip I wanted to warn you about. When you're going to have to replace a lot of windows, get that order in quick. Get it in first, maybe even before you close the deal. Get the order in, because those windows can take some time, especially if you're going to have some custom non-normal size windows built. Today, for you and for staying till the end of this episode, I would love to give you the opportunity to listen to one of my free weekly recorded Q&A calls. These calls are important because there's people from all over the nation plugging into these calls, giving their advice and their comments, Plus, I'm working with people out in the field, real investors that are having real problems, and I am talking about how I might solve those problems if I was in their shoes. That's 27 years of experience, over 2,000 houses that closed, and millions of almost ideas and almost transactions that didn't close. So please, check out this free recorded archived Q&A call and listen to the tone of that call. Listen to the information that's being disseminated. I'm going to suggest to you that being on that call could save you and or make you way more money than it ever would cost you. So check it out. Just go to the link below or go to 1000houses.com/free-stuff and scroll up and down the homepage there where it has all kinds of free stuff and pick out recorded Q&A call. Click on it, download it, and you'll be listening to that call within seconds. This is Mitch Stephen. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode.